Are the Lakers and LeBron officially in trouble? What shakeups happened in basketball this week? More on that coming up. Welcome to this episode of Basketball Street Beat. I'm your host, John Behrens.
And I'm Joshua Perkins.
Okay, I feel like that once again we're going to sit here and talk about not games, because not games is more news than games. So the way it's looking is that the Lakers are going to miss the playoffs, which would be an official end not only to LeBron James's final streak, which was 8, but also
his long playoff streak.
He'll miss the playoffs for the first time in his career.
The Lakers are officially in trouble. They're not going to buy him out. I mean, even if he requests a trade, Magic Johnson's going to give him the finger like, no, you're here for the contract. 4 years, $154 million. So we're going to get all $154 million out of you on that court. So LeBron, he might as well just sit in for the long haul and be patient.
Yeah, so looking into this, I still have to sit there and say, who's at fault here? Is it Magic Johnson? Yeah, of course, Magic Johnson has a huge part in this, but it's also LeBron. LeBron was the one who was messing around with other teams' players, saying you should come play with me in Los Angeles, which, not illegal, but when you sit there and make it public.
I mean, and also, you also got to look at it. I mean, he's going to a lot of these teams, and where the players that he's trying to recruit, this is the face of a lot of these teams' franchises. Right. And it's like they feel as if he's trying to spread disloyalty across a lot of these teams in order to make super teams. I mean, he started that trend of super teams when he was in Miami. Then it reached to Golden State, and then he brought the trend of super teams to Cleveland. And it's just now it's gotten old. Like these owners, pretty much a lot of these owners and GMs have gotten sick of it to the point to where Elton Brand made it public. He went on a radio show and he told Ben Simmons that he is banned from talking to Magic Johnson.
Well, good for him.
And so it's like these teams are pretty much fed up with the fact that, these superstar players are trying to take some of our players, that the face of our franchise, the reason for our success, just so they can feed their own agenda.
Yeah. It's because, it started with Kawhi Leonard. They went after him last summer. LeBron saying, "Oh, you should come play with me."
But with San Antonio, the reason why they gave the Lakers the finger, it wasn't out of spite against LA. It was more out of spite against Kawhi for requesting the trade. And so out of spite, they sent him to Toronto.
Right, and then the Pelicans were this year. But here's the thing, and I think we talked about this a little bit in the past. You had a bunch of really young players on that team. And basically what you told all of them was the Anthony Davis attempt was that you're all expendable. After telling them they were going to be part of the new Lakers era.
Just imagine you're told you're part of the new Lakers era. You're part of the new dawn. You're part of the Avengers. To basically now being told indirectly that, yeah, you're expendable. We want something better. We're willing to trade all of you. You really think they're going to go out there and give 110% for a team that has labeled them expendable?
Now these grizzled, veterans, they're not going to think anything of that. It's a business. But these are young guys who are haven't even reached their prime yet, and still have upside to them.
If anybody can give you advice can give you, affirmation about how expendable you are, you should just go talk to Isaiah Thomas. Talk to Isaiah Thomas when he was in Boston. He was the face of that franchise. He was the cornerstone of that franchise. He was the reason why the Celtics were so successful. He even played right after losing his very own sister. And he still went out there and played and gave 110% for the team that he loved, for the franchise he loved. And they still traded him. So if anybody wants to know, advice or affirmation on if you're expendable, talk to Isaiah Thomas and he'll tell you.
Yeah, I would say there's only a handful of players out there right now that aren't really expendable.
Like LeBron,
Anthony, AD, Giannis. I would also say Steph Curry.
Yeah, Steph Curry's not expendable. I mean, you're looking at probably the best shooter in the world.
Anyone else on the Warriors, I would say they could be traded, but Steph Curry is just not someone you get rid of. You build around Steph Curry.
No, also I would say Kevin Durant is not expendable neither. I wouldn't label Kevin Durant as expendable.
Okay,
I mean, he is a valuable player.
I mean, KD is getting a little up there in age right now, but
I mean, he's still playing at a very high level.
Yes, I definitely give you that. Okay, so, but I mean, the point is, there's only just a handful of players that aren't really expendable. Everyone else is, for the most part, tradable. They're an asset. They're a spot on the roster. To which every year there are 15 spots on the roster.
It's just that's the nature of the business. It's just the nature of it.
Which let's kind of transition to the other big off-season question: does Kyrie stay in Boston?
I've been hearing yeses. I've been hearing nos. I'm going to take the wild prediction that he doesn't stay in Boston, just to how the Celtics have kind of plummeted this season. I mean, you look at the players they got. You got Jaylen Brown. You got Jason Tatum, Gordon Hayward, Marcus Smart, Al Horford, Kyrie Irving. I mean, when you look at that team on paper, you're looking at probably the best team in the East. On paper.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel that there's a lot of guys on this team that are not willing to decrease their role. They're not willing to take a smaller role or a smaller contract for the success of the team. And I said it before, I'm going to say it again. The reason why the Warriors are so successful is because you have guys out there who are willing to step into a smaller role, who are willing to, not be that cornerstone they used to be, who are willing to take, smaller contracts. Like Kevin Durant took a smaller contract to stay with the Warriors so he can win. They do it, they play because they want to win, and that's why the Warriors are so successful. When you look at the Celtics, there are too many egos on that team. The reason why the Sixers are relatively successful is because they're willing to come together as a team. Jimmy Butler, I mean, he's not the cornerstone of that team like he was with the Bulls, but he goes out there and plays hard. Look at the Bucks. That's just a young team. They can play, and they got a couple of veterans who's kind of guided them.
Yeah. So it just kind of seems like there's, when I'm following the Celtics, it just seems like there's this disinterest in what's going on. There's not much team chemistry right now.
I mean, you look at the Celtics. I mean, you're looking at a team that can win it all if they wanted to.
Oh yeah,
if they truly wanted to, they could probably win it all and probably dethrone the Warriors if they wanted to. But because they're all prideful and they all have a huge ego, and I feel that's why Kyrie Irving is going to leave.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, they are one of the better starting fives in the league right now.
I mean, Kyrie, he's pretty much the undisputed leader of that team, but it seems that nobody is willing to.
Is he?
Well, I wouldn't say okay, I kind of went too far saying the undisputed leader, but he is one of the leaders. I mean, one of the leaders on the team is a guy like Al Horford, who's been in the league for quite a while sometime after coming from Florida. But yeah. Kyrie Irving, I mean, from what he learned in Cleveland, from what he learned being under LeBron James, I mean, Kyrie Irving left Cleveland to get out of LeBron's shadow. He went to a totally different team to get out of the shadow of LeBron and be a leader of his own team, and it looks like it's not going too well for him. And so I feel that a good landing spot for him would probably be the New York Knicks. You have a lot of young guys who are looking for an undisputed leader, a guy who can perform and a guy that can put their team in position to win. Because I'm just going to let you know, the New York Knicks, when they traded Kristaps Porzingis to the Dallas Mavericks, they were able to free up 2 max contracts. So you look at 2 max contracts, and if they don't trade their draft pick, which the Pelicans are going to try and get them to do, if they don't trade, then you have the number 1 pick, and then you have 2 max contracts. And I guarantee you in the offseason, because Kyrie Irving will be a free agent, and I think KD's going to be a free agent. I believe so. I have to look up on that.
Yeah,
but just imagine if the Knicks can lock down KD and Kyrie, and they can keep the number one pick. Which, if they do get the number one pick through the lottery, which would be, of course, Zion Williamson. Of course, I mean, you look at the Knicks, probably the worst team in the league. They can go to being one of the best teams in the East next season. But that's just a bunch of what ifs.
Yeah, I would say if they can lock down KD and Irving in free agency, and then trade for AD, you already got a core right there.
You're looking at probably the next big three of the NBA. You got probably the best. You got probably the best guard. You know, as far as fundamentally, best guard in the league. You got one of the best centers in the league, and you have one of the best power forwards in the league in KD. Mm-hmm. And all three, they got range. All three can, because KD can also be a floor general as well, just like Kyrie is.
Right. So, I mean, all that sounds nice and glorious, but at the same time, you don't want to give up too much of your assets, which anybody who trades for Anthony Davis is going to have to give up some assets.
Oh, definitely. Definitely.
But, you don't want to do what the Pelicans did and waste talent like that. You would actually build around your star players.
And I mean, that's why I feel the draft is going to be pretty big for the Pelicans. They got 3 second-round draft picks. And if they trade for number one pick, then you pretty much going to have 2 first-round picks. So that's 5 draft picks right there that you can build. Young guys that you know are going to be in for the long haul.
Personally, if it was me, I would go more for the picks than the established players because what are you going to do? Get players that are past their prime?
Well, I'm gonna come up with an analogy, like a comparison. Like you said, going with the picks, I'm with you on that one. Going with the picks, then going for established players. It's kind of the same as like a person going to basic training and they're shooting a rifle for the first time. Because I was told by a drill sergeant that those who have never shot a weapon before going to basic training, they're going to be the better shooters because they don't have any set behaviors. They don't have any set habits. You can teach them like the full 9. You can teach them everything, and they're going to fall in line to what you're teaching. Like same thing with the NBA. If you go for the picks, you got a lot of young guys who are, they don't care what team they go to. They're gullible to go to any team in the league. They're not yet established in the league to where you give them a deal. They're going to be in for the long haul. They're on the excitement. Because if you're an established player, like you look at guys like Lonzo Ball and Kyle Kuzma, they've already been in the league for a year or two. And so they kind of know how the business is. And it's like those are the type of guys you can't really get to try and stay for a long time if you trade Anthony Davis. You kind of get what I'm saying? Am I making sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. But again, that's kind of why I went with I think it's better to go more pick heavy in this trade than to get a bunch of players out of it. Because I think you can build better with picks, especially seeing how, again, example, the Pelicans, obviously that's the team we're going to be talking about this offseason when it comes to trades because they're the ones who have the superstar that they're trying to trade right now. But they already got a pretty solid starting lineup. Drew Holiday, Eiffel Payton. You got Julius Randle, even though he's on a 1-year contract, he's been pretty good.
And I mean, I do hope the Pelicans actually keep him past this season.
And I forget his first name, but Etuan Moore. I like him. You got a starting 5. Or you have players to build around. Now, add some draft picks to that. Build through the draft. I mean, is that not what Golden State did?
I mean, and there are some players in this nation in college basketball who can make a splash in the NBA. I mean, of course, Zion Williamson, of course. But you got guys like Cam Reddish or R.J. Barrett. You look at guys like Grant Williams from Tennessee, P.J. Washington from Kentucky. You got a few players that can make some noise in the league that you can build a franchise around.
Right. So, it should be interesting. I'm curious to see as to what teams get into the Anthony Davis trade talk in the offseason, because I know that's why the Pelicans held on to Davis, is to get more teams involved. even though Dell Demps is now out of New Orleans.
But, I mean, you do know that when the lottery comes, whoever gets the number one draft pick, as soon as it's said, oh, this team is number one draft pick, right after, they're going to be getting a call from the Pelicans saying, hey, so we have Anthony Davis. Let's work a trade. You want to give us the number one pick, and we'll give you Anthony Davis. No, we want to be number one pick right now. Yeah, we want to be number one pick right now. Because, I mean, you want to go ahead and try and nip that in the bud and establish that right then and there.
Right. Oh. It just seems these days that there is more drama to talk about than there are basketball games.
There's drama in every sport. I mean, the only sport there's even drama in soccer. There's been drama in soccer. I mean,
yeah, there is drama in soccer.
That's a lot of money, though. I mean, you don't really see drama in hockey. Hockey, they just go out there and just kill each other. They do it for the love of the game. I mean, yeah, there's some big contracts in hockey, but at the same time, they play for the love of the game, and they just go out there and they just kill each other.
We'll wrap up the pros and go on to college basketball after this. Okay, welcome back to Basketball Street Beat. College basketball, we are getting close to March Madness, as Selection Sunday is less than 2 weeks away, I want to say. Or it's about 2 weeks away.
And we're seeing teams making strong finishes.
So, I think, okay, so the one to talk about was Utah Valley knocking off...
Utah State?
Yeah, Utah State knocking off Nevada.
Utah State is a team, they're unranked, but this is a team that can make some noise in the NCAA tournament.
Yeah, and just think about this. You know, they're unranked, and they knocked off, I would say, the only ranked team in their conference. But
not only that, Utah State is a front runner for the Mountain West regular season title.
Yes, that is where I was going. Is that Nevada could now potentially not win their conference,
and which can affect their seeding as well.
Affect their seeding, and plus being had at least previously been a top 15 ranked team. They were number 12 at the time, so they were ranked pretty highly.
Teams that also look at the Houston Cougars, but even though they lost to UCF is also a team. They're unranked, but this is a team that can make some noise in the NCAA tournament. But I got a question: what bubble teams you think can really, that can sneak in there?
Bubble teams that can sneak in there. I don't know. There's not really. It kind of seems like a little bit of an odd year for bubble teams. There aren't that many out there. Outside of, typical ones like who's on the bubble in the Big 12 or the SEC or the Big 10. I really don't know. That's a good question.
It is. It's something we're going to have to ponder on as far as the bubble teams.
Yeah. I mean, we still have, I want to say, 2 weeks left. A little more than 2 weeks left in the season. But I think the big story of this year is not so much bubble teams as is like just the fact that who's going to win conferences that weren't previously seen. The fact that Kansas could potentially not win the Big 12 for the first time in 15 years. And
that's crazy.
And that the team currently sitting in number one is Kansas State.
And Kansas State, they've had it out for Kansas for God knows how long.
For the longest time, you just assumed that Kansas is going to win the Big 12. But here we are, and Kansas State, out of all teams, are actually in position to do that. And end the Jayhawks streak of 15 straight Big 12 titles.
I do have something crazy for you. Imagine this sentence. Let's talk about the Indiana Hoosiers. They've been kind of struggling this season.
Right.
Stay with me on this, y'all. Stay with me on this. So usually if they suffer a loss to a lower ranked team, it could be normal to say the Indiana Hoosiers have been upset. But never have you thought that you could say the Indiana Hoosiers pulled off an upset. I mean, I was able to see that when they defeated number one Kentucky a few years ago. That was when Tom Crean was the head coach. But the way they've been struggling, I mean, it's been weird seeing the Hoosiers struggle the way they've been struggling this season. But they did have a victory over Michigan State this past weekend, which can be the launch pad for next season. We're talking about recruiting. We're talking about the confidence in the players they have now. I mean, Indiana Hoosiers, this can be a team that can make some noise next season.
Yeah, I mean, that is just kind of weird to sit here and look at Indiana and say, wow, they upset Michigan State when, not even 5 or even, 5-10 years ago, they were, like you said, one of the top teams in the country. Now they're pulling upsets.
That's weird.
Because they do. They're like 15 and 16 and
15 and 14 or something. I don't know.
15 and 14, something like that. And they just beat Michigan State, who was number 6 at the time.
And they were coming off a huge victory over Michigan in Ann Arbor.
Yeah.
Knocking off Big Brother.
Yeah.
Now, let's talk about them LSU Tigers.
Yeah, that is another surprise team.
Number 10 in the polls after their victory over Alabama this past weekend.
Yeah.
And now they have 2 games left. They're going to be going against Florida. I want to say they're going against them tomorrow, I believe. And then they'll be going against Vandy for their final game of the season. Vandy will be a home game, and that'll be their senior tribute day. I think it's just 2 games left in the regular season. So if LSU can get these last 2 wins, I mean, we could be looking at the regular season conference champs because they are having a victory over Kentucky, and they own the tiebreaker with Tennessee after knocking them off.
Right.
Now, do I see LSU beating Tennessee, say if the game was in Tennessee, or possibly not because of how good Tennessee really is? I mean, you look at the first time Tennessee played against Kentucky, at Rupp Arena. Kentucky destroyed them. Kentucky goes to Tennessee, and Tennessee flips the tables around them.
Yeah, they traded pretty big, heavy blows. Like you said, Kentucky destroyed Tennessee first time around, and then this past Saturday, Tennessee returns the favor. I don't think it was as big as a margin of victory, but still, it was comfortable double digits.
Kentucky knocked off Tennessee by 17. Tennessee knocked off Kentucky by 19.
Oh, okay.
So between the two, 36 points was a total points, was a total number of points that determined the 2 games. So both games were decided by an average of 18 points, which is that's a pretty comfortable victory.
Yeah, in basketball, that is definitely a comfortable victory. It's like winning by 5 points or more in baseball.
Pretty much.
So, we're getting close. There should be some new faces in the tournament as always, but some teams that typically win their conference aren't going to do so this time around. Kansas not winning the Big 12 to me is the biggest upset of the season.
Just consider how deadly they are in the Big 12 and the reputation of being the big dogs on the yard in the Big 12. And it's just like now I feel that with Kansas, if they don't win the Big 12 this season, I feel that it's going to forever change the landscape in the Big 12. It's going to forever give the teams the confidence that, hey, we can do it too. Kansas done it for the past 15 years, and I feel it's going to be changing up the guard in that conference. So we're going to be seeing a lot of different conference winners in the coming years.
Oh, we'll see. Which is also interesting because we're it seems like we're moving forward with the current FBI investigations. So we kind of missed this last week, but let's see, Arizona's Sean Miller?
I believe so.
Sean Miller and LSU's Will Wade have been subpoenaed to appear and give testimony and answer questions for this corruption investigation by the FBI. So when the FBI gets involved, it's deep and serious.
Yeah, jail time is going to be involved in this one, and we're going to be seeing a lot of people stepping down. We're going to just see, like, right after the game, coach is going to be, carrying handcuffs. And
it already cost Rick Pitino his job.
Like Rick Pitino, I think he's overseas coaching now.
Yeah, he's over in, let's say, Italy.
I think so.
So, I mean, we're still not done with this.
Yeah, it's going to go on for years. This is going to go on for a long time.
So, this brings up another question. This is also on the heels of the referee for the NBA that was recently.
I think it's Tim Donaghy, I believe.
Donahue?
Donaghy, something. It's been a long time. Fixing games and whatever.
Fixing games and whatever. It just, and some of the controversial calls in the NFL this past season. So, I haven't really thought about much of the claims in the past, but I'm starting to sit here and question, okay, are our sports leagues compromised?
Yeah, I mean, they're compromised from the worst part. They're compromised from the inside. Some of their very own are the ones doing the corruption.
It's looking like there is some legitimacy to the arguments that these games are rigged. And let's just make it clear. By rigged, I'm not saying the outcomes are decided before the game and everybody's in on it. I'm talking about certain people within these organizations who can make an impact on these games are doing their darnest to make sure they end with certain teams winning. That's what we're talking about rigged here. We're not talking about puppeteering the games. But,
it's a shame that a lot of, people on the inside, they're destroying their own, organizations, they're destroying their own leagues from, the inside. Just, like the NCAA doesn't really have a place for those that, now there are some people that can get away with it. Like, for example, Coach K recruits the number one player in the nation, and he's from the East Coast. Well, if he recruits the number one player at all, I mean, they're not going to touch Coach K. I mean, granted, Coach K I'm pretty sure he has done things honestly. Like guys like him, Coach Calipari, Coach Roy Williams, Coach Sell from Kansas. But when you look at, coach like Coach Sean Miller, and he gets a player from overseas or he gets a player from the other side of the world, it might bring up some concern. Mm-hmm. It's all about the patterns. And, I mean, you look at how Tremont Waters for LSU, how I think he was out for the past 2 games due to an undisclosed sickness. What if he was sat out just to kind of keep the bleeding down as far as from the FBI or from the NCAA?
I don't know. It's like all this is starting to come out, and it's not just. It really does raise the question for me: how corrupt are the leagues?
I know the NFL is very corrupt. I mean, you look who the commissioner is. It's Roger Goodell.
Especially when you start consider money's involved. Money's always involved in these things.
I mean, it's got to a point in this world where is money not involved? So I mean, money is involved everywhere. I mean, money rules the world. I mean, that's the harsh reality.
Yeah, but there's an honest way of doing things and a dishonest way of doing things, and it seems like the dishonest way of doing things are starting to win out more.
I mean, it's going to come out sooner or later. The truth is going to come out, and I mean, we just have to kind of play by ear and just see what happens.
Yeah, well, I am legitimately interested now as to just how deep the rabbit hole goes, as the saying goes.
It's going to go pretty deep, but I mean, like I said, it's going to be a long process. So,
yeah. Yeah, well, especially seeing how we're talking like billion-dollar industries.
But, I mean, while they're doing the investigating and everything, and while everybody's building their case and everything, in the meantime, between time, I think it's time we get something to eat. You like how I just flipped it on you like that, huh?
Yeah, okay. All right. Well, thank you for tuning in to this episode of Basketball Street Beat, episode 8. I am your host, John Barons.
I'm Joshua Perkins.
You can find us on Twitter, Facebook, YouTube's, and our website, AISportsNetwork.com. This has been AI Sports Network production, signing out.
Love y'all.